What's up, guys? Jesse DeRozier here with Hydrilla Gorilla Guide Service. Today's date is March 29th, 2025, and this is what's on the deck. So last week, unfortunately, I was not able to get a video up. I've literally been running every single day, wide open, running doubles, double trips per day, and just did not have time to be able to get a video up and get it posted last week. Due to when I'd get in off the water at dark, I literally only had a couple hours to get the boat prepped, get rods taken care of and prepped for the clients for the next day, as well as get a bite to eat and get in the bed. So that being the case, I did not get a video up, and I apologize. This week, however, with the Big Bass Splash being here, I do actually have time to be able to get a video made, and so that's the reason why it's being made today. So let's go ahead and get started on what we did actually the last 2 weeks to be able to stay on fish. There's been a lot of changes. The winter baits have completely went away. The colder water baits are gone. I'm no longer throwing an A-rig, no longer throwing a jig head minnow. Not to say that you can't catch fish on those baits. You absolutely can. It's just not our focus right now. I want my clients to be able to catch as many fish as possible, and definitely the numbers are moving to the shallows. That being said, let's go ahead and get started on the primary lures that we used this past week. First was a rattle trap, and this has faded now. As the week has progressed, we've gotten towards the end of this week, and as of the other day, we were out of 20, I think it was 27 fish that we caught. Only 4 came on the lipless. So other baits now have kind of taken precedence over the rattle trap for me. And the primary baits have been a ChatterBait and a swim jig. And what I'm doing is I am looking at my live scope and my 360 and determining whether or not there is a lot of bait fish in the area. Now, before I was looking at that, and that would be my determining factor as to whether or not I would throw red or not. This week, I completely took everything red out of my boat. That has now been removed, so you won't see any more red from me. Not to say again that they won't hit it. They absolutely, I'm sure, are still going to have some out there that are feeding on that. It's just not my focus anymore. What I'm looking for is if I'm seeing threadfin bait balls in the area, I'm going to be throwing a ChatterBait that is more shad oriented. Smaller profile where the threadfin are. And then if I am around gizzard shad or golden shiners, if I'm seeing those in the area, I have not done it up till this week, but now that I'm starting to really see it, we are finally going to be breaking out that Producer Swimbaits pintail shad. Normally I throw this straight on a jig head of the ChatterBait, and I don't have a skirt, but you can see that that one is threaded on there. That's normally the way that I'm going to throw it. I did see a lot of golden shiners recently, and that being the case, I actually had a golden shiner skirt and decided that I was going to go ahead and pair the two this year and just try this in both areas where I'm seeing gizzard shad as well as golden shiners. So gold blade, we've had a lot of stained water recently. We had some high winds. We also had some rain that had came in a couple weeks ago and really hit pretty hard when the tornadoes came through some of the areas upriver, and as a result, TVA has been flushing our lake with a lot of that dirty water, and our water has been stained up. Pair that with also now we're starting to get algae growing on some of our grass, and you're starting to see that kind of snotty stuff all over some of the grass. So it starts limiting how much actual visibility that we have in a lot of these areas, even though it's shallow. So the cleaner water areas, I'm definitely going to be throwing something that's more shad oriented or silvers. If I'm in a dirty area, I'm going to be throwing something with that gold. But again, if I'm even in clean areas where I'm around those golden shiners or gizzard shad, I'm going to be picking this up and throwing it. last but not least on the chatterbait scene is going to be a bluegill pattern. So in those areas where I'm seeing no threadfin, no gizzard shad, no golden shiners, but I am seeing bluegill kind of on my live scope moving up and around, you'll usually see those directly underneath your transducer, very close by. And as you see those kind of, they'll move up and then kind of dive back down. You can tell that they're bluegill. That's where I'm going to be throwing something that's going to be in that more green pumpkin or bluegill pattern. That also pairs with the swim jig. So again, with the dirty water, last week we were throwing a lot of black and blue as the water clears, or if it's an area where you're not seeing, that's on the line there, not seeing threadfin, gizzard shad, or the golden shiners, and I'm seeing bluegill, I'm going to probably pick up that green pumpkin. Now, one of the patterns that I get on as well this time of year, as these fish start moving really shallow and getting into the spawn time frame, they start getting on the ends of these laydowns or beside the laydowns. They'll get up there and be making beds around these areas. And that being the case, it's hard to throw a chatterbait up there. You can definitely throw the swim jig up there. So that's a great option. But I also like one other. And that is going to be the same old producer swim bait that I've been throwing. So if I'm around the threadfin, the 3.5 blue minnow is going to be my go-to on that flashy swimmer by Owner. But if I'm in an area where these bigger bait fish are running around, I now am going to the 4.5 inch Swiminator and bumping up to a little bit heavier weight, just due to the fact that this is going to require a little bit more weight to get it to fall. Otherwise, it's going to want to climb. Now, I'm all about trying to teach you guys some of the tweaks that we do to these lures. So this week, I'm going to share one with you that has made a big difference in how long these baits are staying on my lure, or on my hook, I'm sorry. If you look at this one, this thing has absolutely been mauled. And that's a little bleed spot from my hook covers, but I mean, you can see it's torn down the middle, teeth marks all over it, but yet it ain't going nowhere. What I've done is on these Owner flashy swimmers, they come with a medium CPS spring, which is center positioning spring. That center positioning spring that Owner has can be replaced. They sell a little packet of the large, and if you look at this bait, you'll be able to see it really well. See how big that spring is inside of there? That allows for that bait to be put on there, and they're not going to pull this thing off. You can fight the fish over and over again. You'll actually tear, like that one, you'll tear a trough through where the hook's at long before this thing ever gets pulled off. If you don't replace that, you're going to go through a lot more baits. They'll literally rip it off just in the process of fighting it. But for a little packet of those springs, maybe like $4, and they'll last you until you basically lose those hooks, until they get broke off. Because they can be taken off and put on a new one. So, you know, if you roll over a tip on a hook point or something like that, and you're wanting to put it on a new one, they can be taken off and moved over. So the other adjustments that we've been making on these lures, again, is on our chatterbait trailers. So on a chatterbait, if this one actually has a lead keeper, this is a different style. It's not the jackhammer. So on this one, it actually has that lead keeper on here. There, I'm going to use the Avid Angler Solutions fishing glue. Glue that one on there. It's not going anywhere. And these things, that's a Strike King blade minnow. It's extremely durable. You can catch 25, 30 fish off of that before that thing gets torn up. And usually what ends up happening is it's not really torn up. One will run up behind it and grab where it's segmented and grab onto it and latch on, and when you set the hook, it'll just rip the tail off. So your piece is still up there, still glued on. It's just they ripped the tail off. On the jackhammer, just like the Ducket sway head, they use the two little metal prongs that stick out on top and bottom to hold the plastic on. And again, they're a little long, so it'll end up ripping a lot more into the plastic if you don't do a little bit of snipping. Take a pair of little angle cutters, trim those down. I usually cut them by half. So they're about an eighth or 3/6. I think those are about 3/16 of an inch long on the jackhammer. Snip them down literally in half. There's 2 of them on there, and then put a dot of glue, put your bait on there, and it's not coming off. So that is a couple of the adjustments that we've been making with a couple of these baits. Again, swim jig, gluing that trailer on the swim jig. The next thing that we are doing is, of course, adding scent to our baits. So the ChatterBait, swim jig, swim baits, as well as the soft plastics that I'm fixing to feature, adding scent to those baits will definitely help you get more bites. But let's go ahead, drop that glue, and get started on the soft plastics. So as the lipless bite starts to fade is the time frame that I make the decision to now start introducing soft plastics. When I started seeing that taper off this week, I started picking up soft plastics. So up until then, I've been pretty much power fishing 98% of the time. But now, of course, the wacky rig is going to come into play. That's going to hang around probably through the middle of May, till these fish can come off bluegill beds and I move out deeper in the ledges. Even during the summertime, that'll continue to play as if you're up in the grass. So wacky rig being probably first and foremost. Second to that is going to be a light Texas rig. When I say light, I mean light. I usually use an 1/8, a 3/16, maybe a 1/4 if I'm working it out a little bit deeper, but usually I'm primarily going to be using an 1/8 as my primary weight with that Senko. I just want it to be able, and I don't peg it. The reason why is I want the weight to separate, and I want that to, just like the wacky worm, you want it to be able to just kind of flutter around back there. I want that weight to separate and pull away. Let the weight go down into the grass. Our grass right now, our new growth is between 9 inches to a foot. That weight will separate and it'll allow for that worm to basically rest right on the top of the grass. And those fish have a lot easier time picking it up. So don't peg it unless you want to bury it in the grass. The last option is going to be a Carolina rig. And I'm keeping it right now probably about a 2-foot leader. I'm not going very long because, again, our grass is pretty short. There are a few areas that have longer grass, and in those situations I'm probably going to go with the wacky rig. Around the shorter grass, the new growth is where I'm going to be throwing the Texas rig, and the Carolina rig I'll use there as well, but I'll also throw it up on the hard pan. So when I say hard pan, that inside the inner grass line. Especially as of April 1st, so a couple days out. TVA is going to continue to bring the water up until about April 14th, and we'll be at full pull. So that inside grass line right now is about 1.5 to 2 foot deep. That's now going to become 3 foot deep. So there's going to be a pretty good area up there that does not have any grass growing, and in those areas, a great place to be able to throw that Carolina rig up there. You can kind of feel it coming through the gravel. There I'm probably going to use, a 1/4 ounce to 3/16, I'm sorry, a 3/8 ounce weight with that, just to be able to kind of throw with that leader on there. You got to have a little bit more weight. But again, you've got that back there, lifting and staying up on top of the grass, so it doesn't create as big of an issue. If you're getting into thicker grass, I would definitely lighten it up. If you are in hard pan, you can go as heavy as you want. It doesn't really matter there. The biggest factor is just being able to kind of feel all that gravel and shell that you're throwing through, or if you're in really windy conditions. That's basically it, guys. Again, big changes as far as getting away from everything else that we were using colder water, so no jerkbait, no jig head minnow, no A-rig anymore. All of that stuff has now been completely taken out of my boat. Everything now is, my focus is 6 foot or less, and I'm gonna try to imitate the threadfin, gizzards, or golden shiners. Crawfish patterns for me, they've seen so much of it over the last 6-7 weeks that I want to be going a different direction at this point. So hope that information helps you guys out. Hope to see you out on the water this week, and until next week, guys, tight lines.